Yesterday, we were hoping to do an interview with Kathy Engelbert. She's the WNBA commissioner. Todd spoke to her a couple of nights ago, and we had a pairings party. Todd went up to her. She's been very friendly to the show. Last year at this event was friendly to us. And Todd said, hey, we'd love to have you on. There's a lot of questions. People have not heard answers from the commissioner. And she said yes.
A lot of questions regarding Caitlin Clark, regarding expansion, regarding the questions from Congress, demanding answers. There's a lot going on in the WNBA.
2 hours. They made him wait 2 hours. And then the WNBA PR staff had the nerve to send a text saying, sorry, she's not allowed to do your show anymore. Not a call, a text.
Yeah.
So yesterday, after the show, we waited almost 2 hours for her. This was scheduled. She was going to do a meeting in her hotel room, a conference call, and then she was going to join us. So Fritzie, for at least 90 minutes, is looking just for an update. We're trying to figure, we're standing by, we're waiting to interview her. They didn't, balk at anything, didn't say you can't ask anything, and we thought, oh.
Let that sink in for a second. The commissioner of a professional sports league said yes to an interview, got promoted all day, and then had her own PR department veto her appearance like she was an intern who needed permission to speak. And that tells you almost everything you need to know about where the WNBA actually stands right now. But here's the part that should really bother you. It's not just the no-show. It's what the no-show reveals about a pattern that has been building for months. We're going to get to that.
Todd did, that the commissioner said that the WNBA staff, the PR staff, said that she is not allowed to do this.
The WNBA PR staff, who should, I guess, be working for her, and she's the one that sends out word, hey, make sure that we cover this issue in terms of PR. Hey, make sure we cover that. Now they're reaching out to her and saying, hey, Kathy, keep your mouth shut.
They would prefer that she did not do this.
Okay.
You're the commissioner, and you're listening to the PR department, which is fine, but did you check with PR before you said yes to it?
Dan Patrick has had Roger Goodell on the show, Adam Silver, Rob Manfred. These are commissioners of billion-dollar sports empires with real legal exposure, real labor disputes, real scandals. They sat down, they took the hard questions, because that is what serious executives in serious leagues do. Kathy Engelbert was 50 yards away on a putting green while Dan's producer was texting for updates. 50 yards. Not traveling, not in surgery, not stuck on a flight. 50 yards away, chipping golf balls, while a scheduled interview went up in smoke.
You're the commissioner, and you're listening to the PR department, which is fine, but did you check with PR before you said yes to us? We promoted it all day yesterday. Now, look, I know people get busy, people have a...
And here is where this story gets genuinely strange. Because according to Dan, the PR staff is the one who pulled the plug, not Engelbert herself. The commissioner of the league was apparently overruled by the people who theoretically work for her, which raises a question nobody in the WNBA has answered. Who is actually running this?
It's all soft. It's not real. It's a fake league, Dan. It's a fake league.
And I'm sure that had something to do with it. But she went on a radio station in Kansas City, but from what I was told, she was only going to be asked about expansion. They were not going to be, tough questions.
Now Dan tried to be generous about it. He said he had no problem if she didn't want to come on. That's a legitimate call for anyone to make. What he couldn't accept was the yes, the 2-hour wait, the promotion, and then the last-minute text, because that is not a scheduling conflict. That is a decision made in real time, while Engelbert was already at the event, to simply ghost one of the most prominent sports media voices in the country. And the question you have to ask is, what were they so afraid of?
She said yes.
A lot of questions regarding Caitlin Clark, regarding expansion, regarding the questions from Congress, demanding answers. There's a lot going on in the WNBA.
So yesterday, after the show, we waited almost 2 hours for her.
The questions Dan was planning to ask were not gotcha ambushes. Caitlin Clark, expansion, the congressional inquiry demanding answers from the league. These are the stories that have dominated sports media for months. These are the stories every WNBA fan wants addressed. These are softball questions compared to what Silver or Goodell walk into. And the WNBA couldn't send their commissioner to answer them. That should alarm anyone who actually wants the league to grow. Because leagues that avoid accountability don't build credibility, they erode it. Every dodge is a withdrawal from a trust account that the WNBA cannot afford to keep draining.
Happened. We reached out to the WNBA all morning long. We needed, just give us a comment. Does anybody have a comment on this? Is anybody there at the office? We couldn't get a hold of anybody. So Paulie, during the show, is trying to track down somebody so we can at least let the WNBA have their say, have their voice, get out in front of this. We're just trying to be a journalist here. That's all. We're just trying to ask questions. But
That's not allowed to do that either. The WNBA is allergic to journalism, Dan. Come on, Dan.
This isn't the first time the WNBA has treated media access like a threat rather than an opportunity. Earlier this season, the league moved to have veteran journalist Christine Brennan's credentials reviewed, reportedly after she asked questions about DeHanai Carrington's on-court conduct during a Caitlin Clark incident. Brennan is not some blogger. She is a USA Today columnist and a fixture at major sports events for decades. The idea that her credentials needed scrutiny because she asked uncomfortable questions about a game should horrify anyone who covers sports professionally. And it didn't stop there.
Eye poke. The same league where you have stooges for the Indiana Fever who hold their phone sideways at warm-ups and ask softball questions to the Indiana Fever coaching staff regarding Caitlin Clark's injuries. The same league who, that same media for the Indiana Fever don't report Caitlin Clark's injuries. That same league who, that same Indiana Fever team actually fires real journalists like Scott Agnes doing work because he's actually speaking somewhat.
There have been reports, and this channel has covered them, about credentialed media at Indiana Fever games being coached on what they can and cannot ask about Caitlin Clark. Reporters holding their phones sideways in warm-ups, asking non-questions, steering clear of anything that might generate an honest headline. And when a journalist like Scott Agnew does actual reporting, the kind that holds teams accountable, he gets fired. Think about what that environment does to coverage over time. If the only journalists allowed in the building are the ones who have agreed not to make anyone uncomfortable, you don't get journalism. You get content. You get PR dressed up as reporting. And the fans who rely on that coverage to understand what's actually happening, they get misled. That is the ecosystem the WNBA has been actively building. And Engelbert's no-show on the Dan Patrick Show is not a one-off embarrassment. It is the natural result of a culture that treats media access as something to be controlled, managed, and minimized.
Sudden, somebody probably said, in my opinion, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Well, at some point, you have to do this.
Not only that, but they don't have you don't have the answers, Sway. They don't have the answers. So they don't even have the ability to prep Kathy Engelbert properly on how to respond to certain questions.
There is a business argument here that gets lost in all the outrage, and it is worth slowing down on. The WNBA is right now in the middle of an unprecedented moment. Caitlin Clark's arrival generated rating spikes, sold-out arenas, and national attention the league had not seen in years. Expansion is on the table. There is real money and real interest flowing into a league that spent most of its existence scraping for both. This is exactly the exact moment where you want your commissioner visible, vocal, and willing to sit across from a tough interviewer and defend the product. Not because the questions are comfortable, but because a confident answer to a hard question is worth 10 press releases. Every league executive who has ever managed a crisis successfully knows this. You lean in.
They don't. If they want to be treated as a serious league, they would have told the NBA during this most recent collective bargaining agreement, hey, we're good. We don't want your money. We don't want you to support us anymore. We're going to do our own thing and try to survive on our own. But they want the handouts. They want the handouts. So it's not really.
And then there is the money angle. Because in sports, there is always a money angle. The WNBA operates with significant financial support from the NBA. That relationship, often described as a subsidy, is part of why the league's survival has been more stable than its attendance and TV numbers might otherwise support. The league is not fully standing on its own yet. That is a fact, not an insult. But it matters here. Because a league that is dependent on outside support needs credibility more than an independent league does. It needs to demonstrate that it is building something real, that it deserves the investment, that growth is coming. And you do not build that case by ghosting the media. You build it by showing up, making your case, and trusting the product to hold up under scrutiny. Engelbert had a chance to do exactly that on Thursday. She was 50 yards away, and she didn't take it.
And then we get a feeble response. Like, come on. You don't want to do it. You won't. The commissioner of the NFL does not want to come on this show. I've been doing this for 20 years. There's a reason why he doesn't want to come on.
This is even worse for the WNBA. But again, They don't see past their own nose.
One more thing Dan said that deserves its own moment. He pointed out that not showing up and then having this exact conversation happen publicly on his show is far more damaging to the WNBA than any tough question Engelbert could have faced during the interview, and he is right. Whatever question Dan had planned about Caitlin Clark or the congressional inquiry, Engelbert could have prepared for it. She could have deflected it gracefully. She could have given a measured, professional answer and walked away looking capable and in control. Instead, the WNBA spent Thursday afternoon being publicly called out for a no-show on a national platform. The story is no longer about the questions Dan was going to ask. The story is the cancellation itself, and that story is considerably worse.
He says the NFL PR department said I shouldn't do it. Like, and she's 50 yards away. She's hitting practice shots out of the bunker.
Damn.
So that's what's disappointing. We deserve more respect than what she gave us yesterday.
There's also the question of what this signals to the people who are trying to cover the league fairly, because not everyone who covers the WNBA is hostile to it. Dan Patrick made the point explicitly. He wanted to give Engelbert a fair platform. He said he would treat her with respect. He had had positive interactions with her at previous events. He was not laying a trap. He was offering an interview. When the league's response to a fair-minded outlet is to cancel without explanation and then go do a friendly radio hit where only expansion questions were permitted, that tells every journalist watching exactly where they stand. You are welcome to come in the building, but only if you agree in advance not to ask anything real. And the journalists who won't agree to that, the Christine Brennans, the Scott Agnews, they get marginalized or removed. What you end up with is a league that has successfully insulated itself from accountability and simultaneously cut itself off from the kind of serious coverage that builds long-term credibility. That is a trap, and the WNBA is walking deeper into it.
You're not allowed to ask anybody tough questions. Players, coaches, staff, not allowed to ask any of them tough questions. You know, we see that with the Indiana Fever. They have whoever that is standing. Hey, you can ask a question. You can't ask a question. That's going to be a hard question. You can't ask a question. So that's how it is in the WNBA. It's all soft, Dan.
The deeper issue here, and this is worth sitting with, is that the Caitlin Clark situation exposed a real tension inside the WNBA that its leadership has never directly addressed in public. Clark is the league's biggest story, its biggest draw, and by most measurable metrics. The reason casual fans tuned in this season, that is not a controversial statement. The ratings back it up, the attendance backs it up, the social media numbers back it up. And yet the league has been conspicuously quiet about the incidents involving Clark that drew national attention. When a specific play happened that generated outrage across sports media, the WNBA could not be reached for comment. Dan's show was trying to get them on the line all morning. Nothing. The league that most needed to get in front of that story chose silence. And you can read that silence a few different ways, but none of them are good for business.
You don't want to come on the show. I have no problem with that. But if you tell me you're coming on and you make us wait 2 hours, that's a problem. And that says a lot about what's going on, in my opinion, with the WNBA.
Damn. WNBA is getting crushed. This league's not serious.
So where does this leave things? The WNBA is at a crossroads that its own leadership does not appear to fully understand. On one side is a genuine opportunity, a breakout star, expansion momentum, congressional attention that could translate into policy support, and a media moment that leagues wait decades for. On the other side is an institutional culture that treats accountability as a threat, that lets PR staff overrule commissioners, that cancels interviews and then pretends the cancellation won't generate its own worse coverage. Leagues that figure that out, that learn to work with serious media instead of against it, they grow, they become institutions. The ones that don't spend years wondering why the casual fan never stuck around. The question for the WNBA right now is simple. Which one do you want to be? Because the clock is running. The moment will not stay open forever, and Caitlin Clark is not going to play forever either. You either use this window to build something that survives her career, or you spend it playing defense against journalists who just wanted to ask questions. Engelbert had a chance to start that answer Thursday afternoon. She was 50 yards away. Drop a comment below. Do you think the WNBA ever puts her in front of a real interview, or does the league keep running from the questions? And if you think this pattern matters for where the WNBA is headed, hit like and subscribe, because we are going to keep watching this story closely.